Okay, can we start?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we will start with Max Weber. We have already done with Karl Marx and also Emile Durkheim. So I hope these two thinkers are very clear to all of you. So today we will be starting with Max Weber. Okay, again a very important thinker and in fact a more rational thinker. So tell me what all things you already know about Max Weber so far. We have discussed many times Max Weber in the chapter of sociology as science. We have discussed, and also when we discussed about Karl Marx and also Emile Durkheim, we have discussed some points related to Max Weber. In the first chapter also we have discussed about Max Weber. Yeah, tell me what all things you know about Max Weber.
He filled the bridge between the positivistic and non-positivistic ideas.
Yeah, he is
The
considered.
cornerstone non-positivist.
Yeah, he is considered to have bridged the gap between positivist and non-positivist, right? So this we have discussed in the discussion of positivism and non-positivism. Weber is neither a pure positivist nor a pure non-positivist. And if you remember, we have discussed that Weber is considered as positivist in terms of method of inquiry and non-positivist in terms of subject matter. What do you mean by that? Method of inquiry, he is positivist. Why? Because he is stressing on objectivity. In that context, he is considered positivist. But when it comes to subject matter, what is subject matter according to Weber? It is a study of social action. That means the meanings, emotions, etc. of the individual. That means the internal aspects. So in the context of subject matter, he is considered as non-positivist, but in the context of method of inquiry, how you study, that he is understood as positivist. So that is why we can say he is considered to have bridged the gap between the positivist as well as non-positivist. On one side, he stressed on studying objectively in terms of establishment of cause and effect relationship, and on the other hand, he stressed on studying the internal aspects like meanings, motives, emotions of the individual. Okay, other than that, what else? Yes, micro, right? So we have discussed about micro perspective, and if you remember, even in the last session when we went for the critical analysis of Marx, we discussed the same. Marx is giving importance to society, Marx is using a macro perspective, and we discussed about Weber there to criticize. And we also used in Durkheim also, Durkheim is giving importance to the society and using macro perspective, but we criticized Weber, we criticized Durkheim also by using Weber. Yeah, middle class, that's not that significant at this point of time. That is specific to Marxian understanding of class. Class polarization, middle class, etc. That is specific to Marx, not here. It's not that significant. In terms of subject matter, in terms of his contribution towards development of sociology, what all things you can write is what I'm actually asking. Yeah, Weber is considered to have the the father of modern sociology, like what we have discussed in case of Durkheim. Yes. And the scope for him is studying social action. Yes, all this, okay. Otherwise, so this is what exactly we have discussed so far. So let me quickly go for the introduction, and once we complete the introduction, what we will do is we will discuss about the theory of social action. Okay. So very important theory of social action. Now before that, let me give you the definition which is actually given by Weber when it comes to sociology. According to Weber, how he defines sociology is like this. Sociology is a science. Okay, sociology is a science which attempts at interpretive understanding of social action. Interpretive understanding. Okay, so sociology is a science which attempt at interpretive understanding of social action in order thereby to arrive at an explanation of cause and effect. So you can see this is a definition which is given by Weber. It is there in your PDF. Okay, so you don't want to write down anything here. So sociology is a science which attempt at interpretive understanding of social action in order thereby to arrive at an explanation of cause and effect. Now, if you see this definition, you can identify the elements of positivism in this. You can also identify the elements of non-positivism. Can anyone tell me what are the elements connected to positivism and non-positivism here? Connected to positivism, what are the elements connected to positivism?
Cause and effect.
The science first and then cause and effect, right? So these two are connected to positivism. And then what are the elements connected to non-positivism? Here you can see interpretive understanding, okay, and then social action. This is connected to non-positivism. So in the definition itself, you can see there are elements from positivism and also from non-positivism. So that's why we have made an argument that Weber is considered to have bridged the gap between the two. In terms of method of inquiry, he is a positivist, and in terms of the subject matter, he is a non-positivist. Subject matter for him is what? This study social action. That is internal aspect. That is how we understood non-positivist. And how is method of inquiry? Establishing cause and effect. That is related to positivism. That is related to scientific approach. So I hope that point is very clear. Okay, so we have discussed about the definition of sociology, which is given by Weber. Sociology is a science which aims at interpretive understanding of social action in order thereby to arrive at an explanation of cause and effect. So he introduced the term social action, right? So we need to now define what is social action. So that theory is what we are actually going to discuss in this session. So briefly, I will discuss the social action now, and in detail we will get into that details once we complete the introductory part. So according to Weber, any action is social by virtue of the meanings attached to it by the actor. So any action is social, but what is the condition? By virtue of the meanings attached to it by the actor. That means the actor should attach some meaning to it. So the definition goes like this: any action is social by virtue of the meanings attached to it by the actor. It takes into account the behavior of others and is thereby oriented in its course. So it also takes into account the behavior of others and is thereby oriented in its course. That means, so first condition is, we are discussing about any action. Any action can be social. Two conditions: there should be some meanings and it should be oriented towards another person. So just remember these two conditions. If these two conditions are satisfied, any action is considered as social action according to Weber. So I repeat the definition. Even if you are not going with that definition, still it is fine, but it is a very simple definition. You need to reproduce the same. Hardly you need to study 3-4 definition in each thinker. So it is very good if you can study, if you can remember. Okay, so the definition goes like this. It is there in your PDF. You don't want to write down anything. Any action is social by virtue of the meanings attached to it by the actor. It takes into account the behavior of others and is thereby oriented in its course. So from that definition itself, you will understand this: any action is social. Two conditions: meaning should be there and it should be oriented towards any other person. So there has to be some meaning. Okay, now you do certain actions, like there may be some actions like blinking of eyes, etc. That will not be considered a social action. These are biologically conditioned action according to Weber. Okay, the biologically conditioned action or biology related actions will not be social action. These are mechanically performed by the individual. These are behaviors, right? Some people will keep on blinking the eyes. So these are not considered as social action. There has to be some meanings first of all, and it should be oriented towards any other person. For example, you may drink water when you're hungry. So there is a meaning, right? Meaning is there. This part is there, but it is not oriented towards any other person. So drinking water is not a social action. Okay, but when I am taking this class, there is a meaning for this class and it is oriented towards you people. So it is a social action. So any action you are doing, you see whether these two conditions are satisfied, then it is a social action. Okay, and this social action, more than this, more comprehensively will be defined by Parson, and we are going to study that later. So there you will see a better understanding of social action later. maybe after 3 days we'll do with Parson. Okay, so here only two conditions: any action is social by virtue of the meanings attached by the actor to it, and there should be an orientation. Like here I can say my actions are oriented towards you. Now see, one more thing is there that is very important to understand. This orientation can even occur at mental level also. Okay, like when you talk in the phone or anything, it is not necessary that the other person may be physically present. So if you see in our case, the other party, like you people, are not physically present here, but still there is an orientation, right? The action is there, the meaning is there, orientation is there. This orientation is at the mental level. How it is mental level? Because I am expecting that you are there at the other side. So many students are there. I don't know who is sitting, who is not sitting. So what is the expectation? Expectation is that there are some other people who are sitting on the other side. All of you are listening to the class. So this orientation can occur even at the mental level also. Okay, so just understand, any action is social by virtue of the meanings attached to it by the actor, and also it should be oriented towards any other person, then it is considered as social action. Now we will discuss about the types of action, the concepts of worst hand, everything we will discuss in this session itself. So before that, let me go for the introduction. So introduction, we have discussed few things that he is considered to have bridged the gap between the two. He is a micro sociologist. He intended to establish cause and effect relationship. He intended to focus on objectivity. He stressed on study of social action. He stressed on study of understanding the meanings attached by the actor to his action. Okay, and he specifically made the subject matter very clear. And he also made a distinction between natural science and social science. All these we have discussed. What is that difference? Natural science deal with matter which do not have any consciousness, whereas social science deal with individual who's having his own consciousness and the behavior of which cannot be predicted. So complete objectivity may not be possible, but you need to ensure objectivity while conducting the study. It can be done through proper training of the investigator, proper methods, and for that purpose you will see a lot of methods which are going to be given by Weber. So in this session we will see one of the method, that is Verstehen, and then we will discuss about ideal types. We will discuss tomorrow, and then we will discuss about causal pluralism, causal probabilism, etc. So, and also comparative analysis. All these methods we will be discussed, like what we have done in case of Durkheim. We have discussed about multivariate analysis. We have discussed about statistical techniques. We have discussed about indirect experiment. So exactly in the similar way, when we discuss each theory, we will discuss about all these methods, and all these methods, Verstehen, it can be a potential 10 marker, ideal type can be a 10 marker or even 20 marker, causal pluralism, comparative analysis, all these can be independently asked as separate questions. So we will also have to prepare accordingly. Okay, now this is all we are going to do in this session. So we will introduce to Weber, and then we will see the theory of social action. But when we study this theory of social action, what all things I have told you now? So first is the definition, and then the two condition, and then there are 4 different types of action. But before we discuss about this 4 different types of action, I have to introduce a small concept, that is ideal types. I will just introduce that, and tomorrow I will take that in detail. Okay, and remember this theory of social action, later it will be developed more by Parsons. So always you can expect a question on social action like this only, that what is Weber's theory of social action, how Parson improved over it, or how Parson modified it. Okay, so we will see all these things, and everything is interconnected. So I am repeating that thinkers, we are so strong, and be very confident in that, and be in a position to interconnect the way I am doing it. Okay, so let's get started with this introductory part. Weber is considered as one of the founding fathers of modern sociology. Weber established sociology as a discipline in Germany. Okay, he discussed the scope and nature of sociology. What is the scope according to him? Study social action. What is the nature? Sociology study human being, whereas natural science study the matter which do not have any consciousness. For example, Arey yaar, what is the problem? Who's that? Okay, so he discussed the scope and nature of sociology along with distinct methodology for sociology. Weber resolved a major controversy with respect to the contradictory claims of positivist and idealist in the context of sociological knowledge, right? So in that context only, he is considered to have bridged the gap between the two, right? On one hand, he proposed the use of scientific method for achieving objectivity, and on the other hand, he intended to study the meanings attached by the actor to the action. Okay, so I hope this point is very clear to you. We are discussing the same from your chapter 2 onwards and making it as a basic subject matter of sociology. In this way, he used and accommodated the diverse claims of both the perspective. In order to substantiate his claims, Weber pointed out towards the basic difference between the nature of natural sciences and social sciences. Again, we discussed this from the discussion of the sociology as science topic only. In natural science, the basic unit is matter, which is not having any consciousness, whereas in social science, the basic unit is human being who's having his own consciousness and which cannot be predicted. So this is the introductory part, and then few more things you can write. Due to this difference, there is a limitation on development of generalization in sociology. Okay, because you are dealing with human beings, so generalization may not be possible. I cannot generalize by studying human beings because human beings behave differently because they have different consciousness. According to him, social reality cannot be studied without taking into consideration the human consciousness which exists in terms of subjective meanings, motives, and emotional aspects. Thus, the subject matter of sociology is to study these subjective meanings but by using scientific methods. So this is the point. Study the subjective meanings. So this is what aspect? This is the element of positivism or non-positivism?
Non-positivism.
Non-positivism, right? This is non-positivism. What about using scientific methods? This is positivism. Okay? Yeah. So these claims of Weber are found in his book Methodology of Social Science, written in the last decade of 19th century. And in his book, Weber defined sociology as, sociology is a science which attempt at interpretive understanding of social action in order thereby to arrive at an explanation of cause and effect. So you can see here, he says it is a science, but it attempts at interpretation, interpretive understanding. So where we see understanding, okay, we know that. Understanding of what? Social action. So social action means this is non-positivism. Science means it is positivism. In order thereby to arrive at an explanation of cause and effect. This is again positivism. Okay, so both diverse claims were actually accommodated in his understanding of sociology. Further, he defined social action as, you add Weber here. Further, Weber defined social action as any action. Okay, any action is social, but what are the condition? By virtue of the meanings attached to it by the actor. So you have to attach some meaning to the action, then this action is social. Okay, just like blinking the eyes is not a action because there is no meaning, it is a behavior. Okay, but if you blink the eye to tell something to someone, like if you don't want something, you may blink your eyes, then that is considered a social action. I hope you understood. In some cases, you may blink your eye to convey some meaning to some other person, then it is a social action. Okay, it takes into account the behavior of others and is thereby oriented in its course. For any action to become social, there are two conditions, and these two conditions must be satisfied. What are the conditions? The actor should attach some meaning to the action, that is, the act must be consciously performed. In contrast to this, an actor takes action which is biologically conditioned. These are those repetitive acts which are performed by an actor mechanically. Weber terms such acts as behaviors, like I've told you. So for example, blinking of eyes. Okay, secondly, so first of all, it should be having some meanings. The actor should attach some meanings to the action. Secondly, the action must be performed in orientation towards some other person. Okay, so orientation is necessary. So the first one, there should be meaning. Second one, it should be oriented towards other person. Okay, and it means that the action of an individual is performed consciously by taking into consideration some other person, and then this action is social. Ashok, can you turn off your mic please?
Yes, sir.
Why in between you people are turning on your mics? In case if you are not asking anything. The other person may or may not physically present in the situation. Okay, that is, the orientation towards other can exist at the mental level also. So it may be possible that you can imagine the other person and you can do some action. Okay, so that orientation can even occur at the mental level also. So you're doing an action, there is a meaning for the action, and orientation also required, but this orientation is not necessarily required directly, physically, directly. Okay, it can be at the mental level also. Thus, for Weber, the scope of sociology is to undertake an interpretive understanding of social action. At the same time, Weber disqualifies number of acts like imitation. Imitation is not a social action. Mass conditioned action to be social. For example, you go for a movie and in the movie hall, all the people are doing something like they will blow the whistle or whatever it is, and along with that you may also do. These are not considered a social action. Further, establishment of cause and effect should be the aim of sociology. Okay, the understanding of the meanings attached by the actor to the action can help establish the cause and effect. So here, understand this point very carefully, that what we are saying, what Weber is saying is, establishment of cause and effect is the aim of sociology. But how can you establish the cause and effect? I am doing an action, here we are doing an action, so we have to establish the cause and effect of this action. How can you establish the cause and effect of this action? The easy way to establish the cause and effect is understand the meanings attached by the actor to the action. For example, when I do this action, what is the meaning which is attached by the actor to this action? For example, I teach you sociology, okay, and if you what will be the effect? You will crack this exam. If that is the case, how can you establish this cause and effect easily, directly? Go to the actor. What is the meaning attached by the actor to this action? If the meaning attached by me, it's like I want you to study well, so I am doing all this, so I am teaching you, right? So the meaning attached by the actor is basically to teach you so that you will do good in the exam. So if you can establish that meaning, what does that mean? You can actually establish the effect of this action. Okay, the effect of this action will be the exam will be cracked, or that is the case. That should be the case in any social action. So any social action, if you study, this is the most important point, establish this cause and effect. And what is the easy way to establish cause and effect? When you are doing an action, there will be some meanings which will be attached by the actor. If you can find the meanings, for example, you see from your side, you are attending this class. This is also a social action because you are doing an action, attending this class, and it is oriented towards another person. Yes? Okay. So now what should be the cause and effect of this? As an investigator, I have to find the meanings attached by you for your action. You are sitting in front of your computer and you are listening to this lecture patiently. Why? What is the meaning attached by to this action by you? It is basically you are preparing so that you will pass the exam. So effect can be established easily. Okay. So the point here is, in sociology, you have to study the social action. So what you need to study? Social action. And what you need to do? Establish cause and effect. But the question is, how can you establish cause and effect? The easiest way to establish cause and effect is what? Understand the meanings. If you can understand the meanings of the actor, it is very easy to establish the cause and effect, or you can say what is actually going to happen. Why you are doing this and what is going to happen, it is very easy. I hope this is clear. And for understanding an action, Weber proposed the method of Verstehen in his book Methodology of Social Science. So here this can be, a short note for you. This can be a 10 marker. Generally 10 marker will be asked from Verstehen. And Verstehen literally means comprehending. It is basically comprehension only. You do an action, it will be comprehended. That is what you mean by Verstehen, this approach. That means the meanings must be comprehended. You attach certain meaning for the action, and as an investigator, if I am the investigator, I must be in a position to comprehend the meanings attached by the actor to the action. And this comprehension has to be done by a trained investigator. Why trained investigator? Because Weber is concerned about objectivity. If not a trained investigator, different people try to comprehend the meanings attached by the actor, you come up with different meanings. So Weber considered trained investigator is necessary for use of Verstehen. And see, Verstehen, if it is nothing but comprehension, then can we say it is actually a method? No, that is a criticism that you will see when it comes to Verstehen. So for example, if the question is asked about Verstehen, you have to talk about what is Verstehen, okay, and how this method is used, what are the steps, and towards the end, 1 or 2 criticisms should be written in your answer. It may not be the case that in the question it will be asked. The question may be simply 1 line Verstehen. But if you need to complete your answer, and if you follow this approach, it is actually good for you because you will not face any problem with the content. You may have this much content, for example 150 words you need to write. You have more than 150 words for sure here. But in case in exam you may get 80 to 90 words here. That is enough. 30 to 40 words you can write the criticism, maybe 1 or 2 criticism, that will be fine. One of the most important criticism is, although Weber gave this method, Weber himself never used this method. That is a criticism. Secondly, if this is comprehending, then how can you say this is a method? How is it a method? That is a question. Okay. And the task of comprehension is to establish the meanings attached by the actor to the action. The method used by Weber has been largely borrowed from Karl Jasper's method of comprehension. That means Weber is not the first person who used this method. Before also this method was used, but in sociology, Weber was the first person who introduced this method for the first time. Comprehension or understanding takes place at 2 levels. Okay, so first of all, direct observational understanding, which involve directly establishing the subjective meaning of the actor. I see your action and I can establish the meaning attached by the actor. Second, explanatory understanding, which involves understanding the meanings by exploring the situations and constraints of the actor. And for this, Weber gives some suggestions, some steps also. Weber suggests some steps that has to be followed. First of all, see, it's similar to if you need to conduct any investigation, what you need to do. First, you have to, suppose there is an accident happened here. First, you have to do what? You have to go to that particular area, you have to see the situational constraints and all those things. And then you have to ask to these people who might have seen this accident. So that means the secondary sources. First, you have to reconstruct the situation. If it is an accident or if it is a murder or whatever it is, you have to reconstruct the situation and you have to reconstruct the choices or the situational constraints of the actor. If it is a murder, you have to identify the cause, etc. Right? So you have to identify the situational constraints of the actor. Or if it is an accident, whatever it is, any action which has happened, you have to identify that. Then you ask to the people, okay, and then you can ask to the relatives. Like that, you will develop an understanding, and finally you can use the primary source. That means you can ask to that actor itself. Okay, and for that there are some things has to be required, like you have to go for proper, you have to be in the proper wavelength of that particular person. Okay, similarly the language that you are using should be similar to that person, because he should be knowing that no emotions should be there. Okay, so all these things has to be followed. These are very simple steps only. The investigator should reconstruct the situational choices and constraints of the actor. This involves developing the description of the action. I hope you can understand action by using secondary sources. So first you use the secondary sources. The investigator should come up with the same wavelength of the actor. This involves developing appropriate communication ability, which helps the investigator to effectively interact with the actor, medium of communication, etc. The investigator, while interacting with the actor, should not have any sympathy. Why he stress on this? Because if you have any sympathy, you lose what? You lose the objectivity, right? And Weber stressed too much on objectivity. And he should remain indifferent and should be interested only in establishing the meaning. This further help in ensuring objectivity of the investigator. The investigator can enter into conversation with the actor and use primary sources for establishing the meanings. Thus, a combination of direct and explanatory understanding can help the investigator to correctly establish the meanings attached by the actor to his action. Okay, and in this way Weber maximizes the probability of understanding the meanings correctly. And we will come to this, his concept of causal pluralism or causal probabilism. Further, other methods can be supplemented with the method of Verstehen in order to establish the correctness of meaning. So this is a very important sentence. Weber not only using one method. He says you can use other methods so that correctness of the meaning can be better. Okay. Similarly, once Weber talk about any particular reason, he will come up with cause 1. Okay. And then he will also focus on cause 2. Because he say multiple causes may be there. Causal pluralism. Okay. All these we will discuss in the future. So here what he is saying is, this method alone may not be sufficient. You can use other methods also. Supplement it with other methods so that the correctness can be increased. Okay. This method involves identification of regularities. So this is the second method of ideal type. This we will discuss in detail tomorrow. But now understand one thing. When I am saying ideal types, this is also very simple concept only. When I say ideal type, I mean to say regularities. Just regularities. Regularities means what? Regularly seen elements. Regularly seen elements in society. So when I talk about family, okay, when I talk about family, what are the regularly seen elements? What all things will come to your mind? Family, there is a legitimate sexual relationship between the adults, right? Sexual relation between the adult, taking care of child, taking care of aged, okay. All these things you can write. Economic satisfaction, economic security, emotional security, sexual gratification that we have written here. So all these are part of family. All these are the points which will come to your mind when we discuss about family. Okay. Navjeet, yes, tell me. Navjeet Kaur, you want to say something? Okay. So when we discuss about family, these are the regularly seen elements of family. So if I use this word ideal type means, what are the regularly seen elements? So what are the ideal types of family? The regularly seen elements of family. So these are the ideal types of family. Okay. Similarly, if I ask you what is the ideal type of capitalism, when we talk about ideal type of capitalism, what are the regularly seen elements? Time is money, worker is a means to an end, profit motive. All these are regularly seen elements. So that's the ideal type of capitalism. Okay. Now, ideal type, these regularities, if you take one by one, sexual gratification. Can you understand this? I am talking about family. No, it can be not only from family, right? No. So ideal type, one regularity may not give you the actual picture of the reality. We are going to discuss this in detail tomorrow, so don't worry. What I am saying is, these are taking care of child. Can you say it is family I am talking about? No, it can be child care centers. Okay. Taking care of aged, not family necessarily. Old age homes are there. Economic security, it can be through friends also. Emotional security, it can be again through friends also. But if I combine all these elements, is there any other institution which will provide all these functions together other than family? No. So combination of ideal types will give you the reality. Okay. So ideal types will help you to understand the reality once it is combined, the combination. We will discuss in detail of this concept tomorrow. But what I'm saying is, just understand, when I use the word ideal type, it is nothing but the regularities. So the other method in this category, the first method is the method of ideal types, and this method involves identification of regularities. I hope you understood this word. Okay. Weber identified commonly understood meanings in the form of regularity. So what do you mean by regularity? Regularity means commonly understood meaning. That's what I've told you. When I talk about family, what are the commonly understood meaning? These meanings may or may not exist in reality in its pure form, but actual action can be compared with these regularities. Okay. So Weber identified 4 types of action on the basis of 4 common meanings. So what do you mean by ideal types? Ideal types are the regularities or the common meanings. So there are 4 common meanings, and based on that there are 4 types of action. Okay. There are 4 common meanings, and based on that there are 4 types of action. The first action is traditional action. Traditional action. So in this action, the meanings, for any action there will be meaning, right? The meanings are coming from some traditional belief, some traditional tradition or some belief. Okay. For example, you in the class, when a teacher comes, you automatically stand up. Nobody want to tell you to stand up, right? Automatically you will stand up. Similarly, when you feel, especially in North India, we won't find that in South India. When you see the elders, you will touch the feet of the elders for paying the respect, right? So all these are coming out of certain belief or coming out of some tradition. right? So that is what traditional action. Here, is there any consciousness here in this action? Or consciousness is very less? The consciousness is actually very less. Automatically the teacher come to the classroom, you will stand up. You see the elder person, you will do that to paying the respect. So here it is something which is fixed. The consciousness is very less here. Okay, so here the meanings are coming from some tradition or belief. Okay, so any action there will be meaning, but meaning comes from some belief. Second action, affective action. Affective action. So here the meaning comes from some emotion. This emotion can be fear, it can be love, it can be hatred or anything. So you do some action, it can be a spontaneous action. So the mother may slap a child if the child is not eating food. That is out of emotion. That is an affective action. Okay. So here the meaning comes from certain emotion. It can be fear, it can be love, it can be hatred, it can be anything. Here there is a lot of spontaneity in this action. Even consciousness is slightly higher, but it is not that great. Immediately this action may happen. Third one and fourth one. These are actually rational action. I will split this into two, rational action. So when we say rational action, there will be means and ends. Okay. So there will be means and ends. That will be clear. Okay. Means the way you need to do, and ends means the end result. So in rational action, there are two types of rational action. Vert rational action. Okay. And then Zweck rational action. So vert rational action means you are doing an action, you know the means, you know the ends, you know what is going to happen, and you will do it for fulfillment of some moral values. You go for the means and you go for the ends. For example, I have discussed in case of altruistic suicide, captain dying with sinking ship, soldiers dying in battlefield. That can be vert rational action. Why? The means and ends are clear, and it is done for the moral value, for the society. Zweck rational action means, again, means and ends are clear, but it is done for the individual. For example, you are preparing for this exam. The means you need to prepare, end you will become an IAS or IPS officer. So that is crystal clear, but you are doing it for yourself. When you are doing it for yourself, it is Zweck rational action. If it is done for society, it is vert rational action. Okay, now don't say that you are preparing for society and it is vert rational action. That is never possible. Okay, but that example which I have given you, that is perfect for vert rational action. Okay, so Zweck rational action, it is purely individual motivation and individual motive. So these are the four different. Tell me, in which action the consciousness is maximum here? The consciousness will be maximum in the Zweck rational action. You know the means, you know the ends, you plan your preparation, you plan everything, and the consciousness in that action very high. Okay, so if you see, consciousness will go like this. On this side, if you go for consciousness, it is very minimum in traditional action. It will be slightly higher in affective action, more in vert rational action, maximum in Zweck rational action. This is how you can plot that consciousness curve. Okay, so traditional action, it is an action which is generated by drawing meanings from. So from where the meanings coming? From beliefs or tradition. The level of consciousness is minimum. Although the action is done consciously, but meanings come from pre-existing belief. For example, touching the feet of elders for paying the respect. Affective social action, in this type, the action is performed in response to certain emotions. For example, fear, hatred, etc. There is a lot of spontaneity in these actions and the level of consciousness in the action. Okay, I hope there is no need to repeat. Vert rational action, it is an action which is taken logically by considering the means and ends. See, in fact, if you see this word rational, it is actually means and ends. Both is clear. Vert rational is also known as value rational because it is done to fulfill the value or the moral of the society, to uphold the moral values of society. It is an action which is taken logically by considering means and ends for the fulfillment of the moral values. For example, captain dying with sinking ship and soldiers dying in battlefield. Zweck rational action, you can see here rational. So rational you can see in both. That's why I've told you rational action divided into vert rational and Zweck rational. Vert rational or value rational, Zweck rational or end rational. Okay, so it is an action which is taken logically by considering means and end in order to achieve a goal. You know your goal clearly, right? Which is also logically established. The consciousness is complete in this. It is not these. Okay, in fact, the both of these, it can come here, but especially this action. Zoic rational consciousness is very high. In fact, these are also correct because both are rational action, means and ends are clear. And it is the most conscious action, this one. Okay, now again what Weber says is all these are ideal types. The pure form may not come. Maybe you are preparing for this exam, it can be for this also. Okay, mainly this and can be this also. Okay, so or for example, you respect the teacher. I've told you respect the teacher. It is not necessary that it is traditional action. It may be a part of this action also, because by respecting the teacher you may get something more from the teacher. Okay, so to fulfill your goal also you can respect the teacher. So respecting the teacher, it can be it can be what? It can be the traditional action, or it can be even Zoic rational action also. Okay, so that means what Weber says is combinations will work. It may not be in the pure form like this. The actual action can be compared with any of this or the combination. Okay, so actual action may be compared with these ideal types to identify more meanings attached by the actor to the action. Thus, Weber believes in plurality of causes, and causal pluralism is one of the strong pillars of Weber's methodology. What is causal pluralism? Causal pluralism means plurality of causes. We will see this in detail when it comes to Protestant Ethic and Spirit of Capitalism, day after tomorrow or next session. Okay, thus Weber acknowledges the existence of regularities also, but for him the regularities exist inside the mind of the individual. Regularities means influence of society. So Weber acknowledged this, but according to Weber it exists inside the mind of the individual. Yesterday also when we discussed about Weber, Durkheim I have told you. For Durkheim, the regularities are making the individual to do certain action. The family, the religion, the society is forcing you to prepare for exam according to Durkheim. But for Weber, all these things are there in your mind. Your family, your conditions, your society, prestige, everything is there. But you take a decision and you will prepare for this exam. Otherwise, everybody would have prepared for this exam in the world. Okay, so that's what. Regularities exist inside the mind of the individual, and the expression of these regularities are visible in terms of actions which are based on individuals' own interpretation of a situation. So you take your own decision and you interpret your situation and you take an action. The external realities do influence, for sure. It will influence, but not directly. Rather, in terms of individuals' own interpretation of the external realities. Weber's understanding of individual is highly influenced by Kantian philosophy of voluntary will of an individual. You will be discussing about this, you will be studying this in detail in ethics, Immanuel Kant and Kantian philosophy, etc. later in the moral thinkers or the philosophers in ethics module. Weber's approach of social action can be summarized as voluntarist approach. That means he is assuming that individual is having a voluntary will. That means individual is taking an action out of his own will, out of his own interpretations of social facts. Interpretive sociology involving interpretation at the level of meaning. Understand the meanings. Use of scientific methods, and also studying the micro realities. Macro realities can be understood by using micro realities, that is the meanings. Weber, in fact, is a somewhat more rational thinker. You will understand that soon compared to Durkheim and Marx, but not that difficult. Maybe only one difficult thinker is Parson, but it's only again people say he is difficult. I don't know why he is difficult. We will make it very simple only. And all these are very, very simple theories, and by now you might have understood that. Okay, just remember these definitions, only few definitions I am giving. Whatever is required for exam point of view is only written, and just focus on that. Nothing more you need to do for thinkers. It's done in that beautiful way. Scope means what? So here is where some disturbance came. That's why I couldn't explain. Scope means, according to Weber, the scope of sociology is to study the social action, right? That is the scope of sociology. Nature means, what is the nature of sociology? Compare it with natural sciences. Nature of sociology is studying the individuals, human beings, who's having consciousness. That we have discussed many times. Okay? Okay, so can we stop here? Okay, just go through this, and tomorrow there is no class. Saturday. We'll see you on Monday. See you guys. Thank you.